Cole Harrington hadn't expected to come home early that night. The gala had ended sooner than expected. A dull affair stuffed with wine, politics, and people who measured success in cufflinks and tax shelters. He had smiled, nodded, signed a 6-figure check for a children's hospital, and slipped out without another word. It was nearing midnight when he stepped into his penthouse. He loosened his tie with one hand, pulled the door shut quietly with the other, and exhaled. All he wanted was silence, a drink, maybe 5 minutes of stillness before collapsing into a bed he hadn't touched in 4 days. Instead, he barely made it past the hallway before someone grabbed him from behind. A hand clamped over his mouth. Cole froze. Instinct screamed to fight, but before he could react, a voice whispered urgently in his ear, "Don't say a word." The voice was female, trembling, familiar. His pulse slowed just enough to register. Amara the maid. The new one hired 2 weeks ago after the last housekeeper quit without warning. He had barely spoken to her, barely noticed her, if he was honest. But now her hand was over his mouth, her other arm gripping his chest, her breath shaking behind him. Slowly, she removed her hand. "What the hell?" he whispered, turning sharply. "Please," she said. "Don't raise your voice." Cole looked at her closely. She still wore the black uniform, white apron crisply tied, the maid's cap tucked into her coiled hair. But her face was different now, not composed, not quiet. Her eyes were red, wet, as if she'd been holding something in for hours. "You'd better have a reason for this." "I do," she cut him off. "But it's not one I should have had to carry alone." Cole frowned. "What does that mean?" She glanced toward the hallway. "Your son. He sleepwalks." That caught him off guard. "What?" "He's been doing it every night since your last trip. Always around this time. I've been watching him, walking with him, guiding him back to bed." Cole's face softened. "I didn't know." "No one told you," she said, "because no one else saw it. I stay late after my shift to make sure he's safe." "You're not paid for that," Cole said flatly. "I know." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. The air in the hallway felt heavier now, thick with all the things he hadn't asked about. "He talks in his sleep," Amara added. "Sometimes he says your name. Sometimes he cries." Cole's jaw clenched. "Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I didn't know if it mattered to you." That one landed. "I care about my son," he said quietly. "I believe that." She replied, "But children don't feel belief. They feel presence." He didn't answer. She continued, her voice steadier now. "Tonight, he walked past the stairwell. His eyes were wide open, but he wasn't awake. I stopped him before he reached the edge." Cole's heart sank. "I caught him just in time," she said. "But I couldn't carry him, so I stayed by him. And when I heard the elevator, I panicked. I thought if you came in loud, you'd startle him. He's fragile when he's like that. That's why I told you to be quiet. That's why I covered your mouth." Cole sat down on the hallway bench, his suit stiff against the cool leather. Amara stepped closer. "I know I crossed a line. I shouldn't have touched you like that." "You were trying to protect my son," Cole said, looking up at her. "I should have thanked you." She lowered her gaze. "I didn't do it for thanks." Cole leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "You said something earlier about carrying this alone." She hesitated. "I'm used to it." He looked at her again. Really looked. She was young, maybe mid-20s, too young to have eyes that tired, hands that steady from holding in fear. "I know I'm just the maid," she said softly. "But that little boy, he looks at me like I'm something more. And I couldn't ignore that." "You're not just the maid," he said. She nodded but didn't smile. "Why didn't you leave it to the nanny?" He asked. Amara looked away. "The nanny comes in late, leaves early, says she's not a babysitter, says he'll grow out of it." Cole closed his eyes for a moment. Everything he'd missed was clearer now. The long hours, the business trips, the delegating of love as if it were an item on an expense report. "I thought I was doing the right thing," he said, voice low. "Working hard, building something for him. A child doesn't need a future more than he needs his present." Amara said gently, Cole looked at her as if she had just told him a secret he wasn't ready for. And then saw footsteps. They both turned. Nolan stood there, his son, barefoot, eyes heavy with sleep. "Daddy." The boy whispered. Cole rose to his feet. "I'm here, buddy." "Walk slowly," Amara whispered. No sudden movements. Cole stepped forward, knelt, and opened his arms. Nolan stumbled into him. "I was looking for you," the boy murmured. "I'm here now," Cole said, his voice cracking. And for the first time in a long time, he meant it. He held Nolan close, realizing how small his son still was, how easily his frame fit into his arms. It had been weeks since they'd sat like this. Too many phone calls, too many silent dinners, with screens between them. Now his son clung to him like a boy afraid to wake up alone again. Amara stood back, watching quietly. She didn't try to insert herself. She never had. Cole finally looked up, his voice raw. "How many times has he done this? Since I started. 7 times. Always after midnight. Always pacing, like he's looking for someone." Cole lowered his face into Nolan's hair. "He thinks I left him." "I think he just missed you," Amara said softly. "That's not the same." She walked past them and gently straightened a photo on the wall, an old picture of Cole and Nolan at the beach. "You know," she said without looking at him, "when I was little, my mom worked nights. Long shifts. Sometimes 2 jobs. I'd wait up for her, even though she told me not to. I'd fall asleep by the door just to feel close when she came in. I didn't need gifts. I just needed her voice, her presence. A moment of her eyes meeting mine. That was enough to keep me going another day." She turned back to him. "Nolan's still waiting at that door, Mr. Harrington, even if it's not physical." Cole nodded slowly, cradling Nolan tighter. "I thought giving him everything would make up for not being here." "Love isn't a delivery," Amara said gently. "It's not something you drop off on holidays and birthdays. It's being there in the middle of the night when they forget their own name, but remember your warmth." She wasn't preaching. She was simply stating what she knew. And Cole, for once, didn't feel defensive. He felt humbled. Nolan stirred. His voice was faint. "Is it morning?" "Not yet, buddy," Cole whispered. "Still nighttime. You're okay." Amara was here. She was holding my hand. Nolan mumbled, drifting back to sleep. Cole looked at Amara again. "You've done more for him in 2 weeks than I have in 2 months." She shook her head. "You don't need to say that." "I do," he insisted. "Because it's true." Amara stood slowly. "I'll make some tea. You both need something. Warm." As she walked toward the kitchen, Cole carried Nolan back to his room, laying him gently under the soft blue covers. The boy sighed in his sleep, turning toward the window. Cole sat beside him, brushing his fingers through his son's hair. When he returned to the kitchen, Amara had already set 2 mugs on the table. She was rinsing something at the sink. The lights were low, the whole penthouse quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator. Cole stood beside her. "I'd like to keep you on," he said, but she didn't look up. "That's your choice. Not just as a maid." That made her pause. "I want someone in this house who sees him the way you do," Cole continued. "Who cares about him as a person, not just a routine." She turned to face him. Her voice was calm but firm. "You don't need to hire love. You just need to be present." "I want to learn," he said simply. She studied his face, not desperation. Not guilt, just sincerity. "A father trying to begin again, after a long moment," she nodded. "Then start by sitting with him every morning, even if it's just 10 minutes. Let that be the first thing he sees before school." He smiled faintly. "And pancakes." A soft grin broke through her tired expression. "Banana with a little cinnamon. It's the only way he eats them." They sat together at the table, sipping quietly. The city beyond the window sparkled, with its endless noise. But inside this home, things felt still for the first time in years. Amara stood to leave, reaching for her coat. "Same time tomorrow," he said. She nodded. "Earlier, if you can." She smiled again. And just before stepping into the hallway, she said, "He doesn't need a hero. He just needs his dad. Cole locked the door gently behind her, turned and looked toward his son's room. For once, he didn't feel like a stranger in his own house. He felt like a father returning home.